Welcome to the Extra Mile. This is G5, and that's Justin, and that's
Hi.
Caleb.
Oh, that was so fast. I can't
Oh,
click
good
the
again,
cameras
right?
fast
This
enough.
is G5. This is Justin.
Hi.
That's Caleb.
Hey.
And this is a quick episode.
Could
Again,
change.
conversational podcasts, easy listen for Christians, hopefully an engaging listen for those that are thinking about Jesus. And today we're going to talk about morality. If you're into that, stick around.
Morality.
Not John. You're not John. I don't know who's John. He's that guy over there. I see dead people.
Did you say phenomenon?
This is where we're at, folks.
We've already ruined this. It's fine.
Justin, you're talking about morals. What's up?
Yeah, I'm preparing for my fourth quarter
Are
class.
you confused?
All the time. It is interesting when you talk about right and wrong. How do we know what's right and what is wrong? Should humans and society be the judge of right and wrong?
Should humans in society be the judge of what is right and wrong?
Yeah.
In a micro sense, because they have to, if we're talking about like a criminal court system, yeah, there has to be a judge that has the authority to dish out what is right and wrong, or to discern what is right and wrong. But if you're talking about a macro scale, should humans be the standard for morality? No. Is that am I getting
Standard
at
for
that?
morality.
The standard for what is right and wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then that answer would be no.
Well, and why? Why? Because we are made in the image of God. Why can't we decide what is good and what is bad? Don't we
I think
have...
we can decide what is good, but we often decide what is bad. This is getting real
Sorry, I do
not
these...
making any sense.
Well, I do these little thought exercises
I love it. I
because-
love it. Let's keep going.
Yeah, because if it's just the three of us, like, okay, let's say democratically. Okay, democratically, the three of us get together and we decide, well, this is good, and this is good, and this is good, and that's bad, and that's good. And, okay, let it be so. But the thing that we thought is good, one of those things would be like, we're going to rob a bank. Let's do it. We need the money. We've rationalized it. We've talked about it. We've weighed the risks. We think it's possible. Let's go do it. And then we accomplish it. And now we've, like I love the movie Bandits with Bruce Willis and Billy Bob Thornton. Have y'all seen that movie?
Actually, I haven't.
It's they rob banks by going to the bank manager's house the night before. And then they basically kidnap them, and then they walk into work the next morning, and then they rob the bank and leave. And
Interesting.
anyway, when I was younger and I had watched it, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I enjoyed the storyline because I thought it's like an old Robin Hood tale,
Sure.
Like we like Robin Hood. We like people stealing from the rich and giving to the
It's a
poor.
moral conundrum.
And so, like, well, okay, now things are imbalanced. There's people who have money. We don't have money. We need money. We're starving. The old Jean Valjean situation from Les Miserables is that, hey, my children are starving. All we needed was, I just stole a loaf of bread.
A loaf of bread.
You broke a window pane.
All right, there's another YouTube short for you, for George.
Well, but that's the thing, right? I think humankind has been talking about that forever, writing all kinds of stories of, is it wrong to steal a loaf of bread if you're starving?
Right.
Because there's people down the street who are living in mansions with plenty to eat. And so we as humans would then take the person who broke the window pane, stole a loaf of bread to feed his family, and then throw him in prison for 20 years because he stole. Stealing is bad. So that's fascinating to think, because then, we would take the claim of, do humans make the decision of what is good and what is wrong, and what is good and bad and moralistically correct? But we three, especially as Christians, look toward God. We know that God is good. We know that God is the one who set this beautiful and terrible world in motion.
Yeah.
And that's illustrated a lot in Jewish thought in the Old Testament, especially in Job. Look how wonderful and beautiful, majestic and powerful and terrifying
Yeah.
all of this is.
Yeah.
And that's a little uncomfy, especially whenever you're reading such the accounts where like God presents himself to people, to like his chosen people of Israel. They had seen the waters part. They saw the army of Egypt destroyed. Now they're sitting at the base of Mount Horeb. And then here God descends in a thunderstorm and the Israelites became terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Like Isaiah sees the throne of God and he becomes and the number one thing the angels say is, don't be afraid.
Right. Chill out, dude.
So there's this magnificent power of God, but we know that he's good.
Look, there's a lot of different things we could say. And morality can be a fun game where we have all of these moral puzzles, or we try to weigh what's the best, what's the right way to go about things. You have universalists, it's the greater good, whatever achieves the greater good, motivism. I think morality just stems to basically just how I feel and what feels best. You have Christian view, which is there's a moral standard. There seems to be this understanding that murder is wrong, and we all agree on that. And therefore, if we know what is good and what is right, there has to be a God behind that goodness as well, right? A moral lawgiver, as we mentioned before on previous podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can just create puzzles around those ideas. The trolley, the famous trolley things. I love that. I love that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites is the classic: is you have 3 people or 5 people tied to the tied to the tracks, and then you pull the lever, and then it moves and it kills just one person.
Mm-hmm.
And would you pull the lever or not? Right? And you can play with different options on that. I heard one on a podcast that was really good, where it's like, you have 1,000 zygotes, pull a lever, and there's one baby on the other side. Do we believe that that's a human life? Right? It plays into your thought process for a second. You're like, huh,
Yeah.
And we can do that, but we're not going to come to really clear answers on those things. I don't think, and the reason is I don't know.
It seems a bit beyond us. That's why it comes
does.
down
It seems
to
beyond us, and so we shouldn't be the reason for making what is the standard for what is right and wrong. And if we can't come to a clear conclusion on those things, I think that's why. And what's funny is we're going to talk about we want to talk about C.S. Lewis and the second book to his book Mere Christianity, and he talks about that. He talks about this idea of, look, if there's this sense of good, bad can never do anything good. If that's the case, then there has to be something behind what is good and what is right. And he says it much more poetically than I can, but just trying to decipher what's going on here. And
Mm-hmm.
I certainly don't want to be the one in charge of pulling the lever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to rely on a God that is both just and is a just God and has a better understanding and grip of what is moral than I do. And that's just a sense of humility, I think.
That's well said. One of the things that I take away from my understanding of the old law is that one thing that as a specific example that I find fascinating is that there was instruction in the old law whenever you did your harvest for your grain, you would take that first pass over the field, and then it says specifically, don't go back through the field and take all of it. You always leave some. Like when you're working, you gather stuff. It makes sense. Like that's an interesting picture. I gather up my sheaves. I move them onto the cart. Cart goes away. There's still some left in the field. And the law says specifically, don't go and gather that up. That's for people who need it. So then basically you're providing for your fellow man by saying, I have enough. And then the people, God was trying to instruct them whenever he would provide manna for them. And it says at first they went and gathered too much because they didn't trust in God. And then it spoiled and became rotten with worms and things. And so specifically for having enough, but then also thinking about people who need, that was written into the law. Fast forward to Jesus coming to the earth, and he was specifically questioned about this by the Pharisees. So, like, what's the greatest commandment, teacher? They seem to say with such disdain.
Right.
God's response is, fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man. And the second commandment, this is unprovoked, but he says the second commandment's just like it, is love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then he finishes, on these two statements, hang the entire law and the prophets. So to know God and his morality is to look toward him as goodness, but then also understand that we, fellow beings on this earth, are just as important to one another as your relationship with God. If you don't care for your neighbor, Jesus specifically says, you didn't care for me. He makes that parallel connection of, if you didn't feed the guy who was hungry next to you, you didn't take care of me, and I don't know who you are. And so that's fascinating when it comes to morality.
I think when it comes to morality, even if, like the emotives say, it all kind of boils down to how I feel or whatever, we all have a feeling of what is good.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason behind that. And I think it's God. And the whole abstract ideas that follow in practice, in real life, or in the puzzles that we make, I'm going to let God figure that one out. I'm going to do the best I can to, as you said, love God and love others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best I can do.
Sweet.
With that, go so. If you want to know more about the Bible or you have any questions, our email is in the description below. You can DM us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're looking for a church family or you're in the Lubbock area, we invite you to come visit and hang out with us in Milwaukee. We love for you to find a church who practices the love of Christ.